One beautiful morning, I decided I would take a relaxing bike ride along the Kuroshio coast. The ocean was sparkling like a gemstone, the sun rays were gentle, and the air was heavy and tangy with sea spray. I felt at peace, melding my mind and soul with the beautiful countryside, taking in the fresh air and tranquility. Then, I was passed by a professional bicyclist. Bright neon shirt, helmet, gloves, flashing red backlight, fancy curved road bike, the works. Good for him, I thought, getting out and enjoying the beautiful view. But then I was passed by another pro bicyclist. Then another, and another. I whipped my head back in alarm, and around a rocky corner emerged a horde of brightly garbed professional cyclists, sunglassed faces boring into the depths of my soul. In that moment, I came to a horrible realization. Not only was there a bike marathon going on, but due to a cruel twist of fate, I was now an active participant. I did what I usually do in situations like this and panicked. Not wanting to get in anyone's way, I cranked up my speed, zoomed in front of the pack, and whipped around corners. It was certainly majesty to behold, this large Canadian man in street clothes, beard blowing heroically, his feet spinning in a tornado like a Looney Tunes character, flying down the highway on a street bike with a grocery basket on the front. After 10 minutes, I lost steam and the horde surrounded me. I pedaled amongst them, terrified that at any moment I might run into one of them and cause a bicycle avalanche. Thankfully, the bikers wisely kept their distance from me and effortlessly passed me. Some gave me odd looks, others ignored me, others even gave me a wave or a thumbs up in encouragement. When the final few stragglers zoomed past, I pulled off the road, panting and sweating. I rode the rest of the way home in shock and disbelief, kind of embarrassed. In Japan, it seems if you don't join marathons, marathons will join you. I never thought I would be the type of person who would enjoy karaoke, but then again, I've never tried it before. On a Friday night, my friends and I headed to a small-town karaoke shop run by an eccentric but lovable Japanese woman called Miwa. The shop was stuffed full to bursting with pop culture paraphernalia, costumes, and musical instruments. 3 large TVs were set up around couches and tables, and we found drinks, snacks, and seats. First, we were assigned costumes. I stuck on some moose antlers, and my friends wore equally degrading items, ranging from a magical girl costume to a duck belt. Then it was time to choose the songs. You know, I used to play SingStar for the PlayStation 2 back in the day, so I'm familiar with some 80s and 90s music. But I'm hip.
I said I'm hip.
I know what's popular with the kids. Everyone proceeded to sing their hearts out. Thankfully, we had the entire shop to ourselves. It already took enough chutzpah to sing Imagine Dragons wearing moose antlers in front of my friends. I can't imagine doing the same in front of strangers. As for our performances, some of the Japanese songs performed by those of us more fluent were chef's kiss. Naturally, as the night wanes, so does the quality of singing and song choice. But overall, I'd say us Kuroshio folks possess a good vocal range and a fascinating taste in music. Karaoke is great. One month ago, we said goodbye to one of our ALTs in Kuroshio. She had been teaching in Japan for half a decade and was quite skilled at talking and working with Japanese people and students, despite not formally studying the language. Her experience and time in Japan made her an invaluable part of our team. Outside of work, she is also an amazing friend, and inspired those of us in Kuroshio to go out and enjoy life in Japan. It's all too easy to fall into a rut and get too comfortable, and to never experience new things. She's someone who pushed us to get out and explore, and to enjoy each other's company. It's an understatement to say that we miss her. I ran an online D&D game for the Kuroshio ALTs. The players were investigating a mountain orphanage, which was plagued with strange disappearances every Thursday night at the stroke of midnight. Unfortunately, I prepared too much, and as a result, we only managed to get through about half the game. The good news is, everyone had such a good time they were willing to come back in October to finish the mystery and get to the bottom of the disappearances. It was my first time running an online game using Discord for audio and Roll20 as a virtual tabletop, but it went rather swimmingly. I'm excited to see if my players will solve the mystery, or if they'll meet their doom. I was presented a unique challenge this month by swapping junior high and elementary schools with another ALT. It's weird starting from the beginning, meeting new teachers and students, and building new relationships. I think it feels so strange because, although in principle everything's the same, all the tiny ways a new school deviates makes it feel so foreign. Literally, I guess. A good example is at my old school, students would say onegaishimasu at the start of assemblies or classes. At this new school, they say hajime mashou. Just little things like that. The swap is only for 1 month, so I feel the need to put in double the effort, as the time I have with these new students is quite short. I tasked myself with rebuilding an English board and setting up my desk, which was surprisingly easy to accomplish. Also, I am reminded again how my lack of Japanese makes communication difficult. I know enough phrases now I'm able to respond in a very basic manner, but often I can't understand what is being said to me, so conversations with new teachers and students are usually kept brief and simple. Perhaps a little more Japanese language investment on my part couldn't hurt. A major plus is my new school is in the same town as me, and I can easily walk or bike to work and don't have the usual 20-minute commute that I would otherwise. I never minded commuting, as my drive to work was probably one of the most beautiful stretches of road in the world, but who am I to say no to extra free time after work? Also, I enjoy the fresh, cool morning air. I was lucky enough to be invited along to an elementary school festival where students, teachers, and parents prepared a traditional Japanese meal and made hundreds and hundreds of mochi. After a short debrief, the students and I were started on chive duty. I was instructed to peel a couple layers back on the bottom of the chive onions, then pick any brown spots I saw. The students would chop the chive, much to their displeasure, as they turned their noses up at the onion smell. It wasn't the most glamorous job, but it's not like it was difficult either. Meanwhile, a few teachers surveyed a soup vat, stoking the flames and brewing a fishy stock. A few parents worked to butcher various kinds of meat. Fish were disassembled, along with wild boar and even deer. There was one Japanese parent that stood starkly apart from the rest. He wore a full salt and pepper beard, a camouflage vest, wicked sunglasses, and surveyed the whole operation with a lit cigar hanging from his lip, puffing away in approval. He seemed so otherworldly in Japan, but he would fit right back in Canada. Eventually, we were called over to mash some mochi. 3 wood stoves were set up and the mochi rice was cooked in large pots over top, steam billowing out. The wood smoke was sweet. It smelled like a good campfire. A large clay mortar pestle was rinsed with boiling water and then the mochi rice was plopped in. This mixture was stirred by the mochi master with a comically large wooden mallet until somewhat sticky and pudding-like, and then the mallets were bestowed to the children. The kids mashed the mochi with varying degrees of success. The aim was to be able to call out the rhythm and hit the rice like a metronome. However, sometimes the teacher was in the line of fire, sometimes the students would bash each other's hammers, and even the mochi mortar itself was in danger, as it was a homemade construction and a little fragile. Some boys really did a number on it, thankfully not shattering it. When it was my turn, my ALT friend and I smashed that rice like we were Clockwork Thor. It's not actually too difficult. The challenge comes when the rice gets more homogenized and sticks to the bottom of your hammer, as it will slow down your backswing and throw your timing off. We did well enough. The mochi overseer said we had natural-born Japanese skill, a compliment I will gladly accept. Afterwards, the mochi was cut, rolled, and shaped into balls with rice flour. After all this work, it was finally time to feast. The soup was interesting. It was made from fish and mountain vegetables, so as one might expect, it tasted like fish and potatoes. It was hot and thick, but not in the fashion a pea soup or a stew is thick. It was more on the slimy spectrum, kind of like natto. Not my favorite dish. Then there was the chive stir-fry. It was 90% large chives stir-fried with thin strips of beef. The seasoning was pleasant and the beef was tasty. Next, there was sweet potato rice with adzuki beans. This dish was surprisingly sweet. Sweet potatoes are already naturally high in sugar, and maybe sugar was even added to the rice. It was definitely good, although not what I was expecting. Also, I was given a large chunk of deer meat that had been seared. It was impossible to eat with chopsticks, but had little to no gamey flavor and was quite delicious. In my Michelin star chef cooking opinion, perhaps it could have been slow cooked instead of seared. I'd liken the experience to trying to eat a thesaurus, albeit a very tasty, toothsome, scrumptious one. Last was the mochi. I'll say it straight up, fresh mochi is damn good. I'm not a huge fan of mochi without some sort of filling, an opinion I share with onigiri, but the red bean paste mochi, still fresh and warm, was simply bliss. Well worth peeling chives for. Overall, I give the experience an authentic stamp of approval. I love the process of making homemade, homegrown food. One of the cooler and more interesting culinary experiences I've had. I've survived 25 typhoons during my stint in Japan. For the most part, typhoons are benign and hardly newsworthy, indistinguishable from a regular thunderstorm. But not all of them are so tame. I've braved 2 typhoons now that were rather intense. The wind is the scary part as it howls and shrieks outside, banging windows and doors, whipping grass and trees. It's the noisiest part and the most difficult to sleep through. But a typhoon's bite is worse than its bark, and it bites with rainfall. The rain is dangerous as it can cause regular flooding, flash floods, and landslides. Japan is populated with thousands of mountains, and while many are braced and reinforced with concrete to prevent landslides, it's not a safety guarantee. The last big typhoon that swept through was serious enough that Kuroshio opened evacuation shelters and encouraged the elderly to evacuate until the storm blew over. In Alberta, Canada, we rarely experience extreme weather outside of heavy snowfall. Having intense weather and natural disasters so frequently is still taking some getting used to. That's all for now. Take care and be bold.